Grandmaster told a maid's daughter to play chess to mock her, but her genius shocked the whole room. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. It all started in a luxurious ballroom, filled with the sounds of polite laughter and the clinking of fine glassware. The world outside seemed far away, with all its struggles and worries, while inside this magnificent space, only the rich and powerful gathered. Among them was a young girl, no older than 12, dressed simply, almost invisibly, in the corner. She was the maid's daughter, a girl who spent most of her time cleaning the grand rooms and halls of this palace-like mansion, her presence unnoticed by those around her. The Grandmaster, an elderly man whose name echoed through the chess world, was a towering figure in this room. With years of experience and countless victories under his belt, he was accustomed to being admired and respected. Today, however, he wasn't feeling the warmth of admiration. Instead, his sharp eyes scanned the crowd, looking for something to entertain him. The young girl caught his attention, and with a cruel smirk, he decided to mock her. "Let's see if you're clever enough," he said, pointing to the chessboard in front of him. He was not serious, of course. He was just having fun, humbling the girl who he assumed knew nothing of the game. "You think you can beat me? I'll make it easy. I'll play without thinking. Show me what you've got." The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone turned their attention to the girl. She looked nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she approached the chessboard. It was a setup, a test of her ignorance, but she had no choice but to play along. The Grandmaster chuckled to himself, already imagining how easily he would defeat her. As the game began, no one expected much from her. After all, she was just the maid's daughter. How could she possibly understand the strategy, the nuances of the game? She moved her pieces slowly at first, as if unsure of her next step. The Grandmaster made quick, confident moves, smirking as he watched her struggle. But then something changed. With every move she made, there was a certain precision in her play, a calculated approach that caught the Grandmaster off guard. Her moves weren't random. They were deliberate, thoughtful. The spectators began to murmur amongst themselves, their curiosity piqued. It wasn't long before the Grandmaster started to sweat. For the first time in a long while, he was unsure of his next move. He had underestimated her. What he had seen as an easy victory was quickly turning into a battle for his pride. The young girl, once dismissed as nothing more than a servant, was proving to be a far more capable opponent than anyone had expected. Could this young maid's daughter actually be a chess genius? The Grandmaster's confidence began to waver as he observed the young girl. Her movements on the chessboard were no longer those of an unsure child. They were deliberate, calculated, and confident. Each piece she moved seemed to have a purpose, each step a strategy he hadn't anticipated. The room, once filled with the hum of quiet conversations, had fallen eerily silent. The Grandmaster's eyes narrowed as he studied her every move, his mind racing to catch up. He had expected to win easily, to make a show of his expertise, but now he was in uncharted territory. For the first time in years, he felt the sting of uncertainty. The people around them watched intently, unsure of what was happening. They had come to see a master at work, not a young girl playing a child's game. But the girl wasn't playing. She was winning. Her eyes locked on the board, completely focused. The Grandmaster's smirk slowly faded as he realized he was outmatched. The more she played, the more evident it became. She wasn't just playing. She was thinking 3 steps ahead. The Grandmaster's hands twitched, and for the first time, he questioned his own abilities. He had underestimated her, and now he was paying the price. He had been so sure of his victory, but it was slipping away. He moved a piece hastily, trying to keep up with her rapid moves, but it was too late. With one swift motion, the young girl set her piece down and checked him. The Grandmaster stared at the board, dumbfounded. His mind raced, but he couldn't find a way out. He was cornered. She had done it. She had beaten him. The silence in the room was deafening. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. The Grandmaster, a man who had won countless championships, who had mastered the game in a way few ever could, had just been defeated by a young girl. He blinked, trying to process what had happened. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had mocked her, challenged her, and now she had not only matched his skill, but she had surpassed it. The room erupted in whispers. The guests, who had once laughed at the thought of her even being allowed near a chessboard, were now in awe. The young girl sat quietly, her expression calm, almost as if nothing had happened. She didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. She simply waited for the Grandmaster to respond. The Grandmaster finally looked up at her, his face a mix of disbelief and admiration. He had been wrong. He had thought she was just a maid's daughter, someone with no place in the world of chess. But she had proven him wrong, and now he had no choice but to acknowledge her talent. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic as he spoke. "You've beaten me. I didn't see it coming." The young girl nodded, her expression still serene. She wasn't interested in proving him wrong. She just wanted to play. The Grandmaster, humbled and defeated, finally extended his hand to her. "You're a true master," he said, his voice full of respect. The young girl accepted his handshake, her victory complete. The room, once filled with arrogance and mockery, now buzzed with admiration. The Grandmaster had been humbled, and a new star had risen on the chessboard. The Grandmaster's hands still lingered in the air, an unspoken apology between them. The room was still in shock, the realization of what had just transpired settling in like a heavy fog. No one had expected this. No one could have predicted that the maid's daughter, the quiet girl who had spent her days scrubbing floors and cleaning rooms, would be the one to outplay a chess master. The whispers began, soft at first, then growing louder as the onlookers tried to make sense of the impossible. But the young girl didn't let the attention faze her. She simply stood up from her chair, her eyes calm, as if this was no big deal. Her movements were graceful, almost fluid, as she gathered her things and began to walk away. The Grandmaster, still reeling from the loss, watched her retreating figure. He felt a mixture of admiration and frustration. How had he missed it? How had he not seen the potential in her earlier? The question gnawed at him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something important. He had spent his life mastering chess, and yet he had been defeated by a young girl with no formal training. It was a humbling experience. The room was filled with a mix of emotions. Some were still in awe of her skills, while others were too stunned to speak. The rich and powerful who had once looked down on her, who had dismissed her as just another servant, were now forced to confront their own prejudices. They had seen her as beneath them, as someone who didn't belong in their world, but now they were forced to acknowledge her brilliance. The Grandmaster, still sitting at the chessboard, stared at the pieces. He could hardly believe what had just happened. He had played countless games, had outsmarted some of the greatest minds in the world, but nothing had prepared him for this. The young girl had seen something he hadn't. She had calculated moves that he hadn't even considered. It was like playing against someone who could read the future. And for the first time in years, he felt what it was like to be outsmarted. As the guests began to disperse, the Grandmaster stood up, his mind still spinning. He approached the young girl, who had already made her way to the door. "Wait," he called out. She turned around slowly, her expression unreadable. "You're a genius," he said quietly, his voice full of respect. She didn't say anything, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, maybe recognition, maybe gratitude. She nodded and turned to leave. But as she walked away, the Grandmaster realized that she wasn't just a genius at chess. She was something more. She was a reminder that brilliance doesn't always come from the places we expect. Sometimes, it comes from the most unlikely sources. As he watched her disappear through the door, he felt something shift inside him. The arrogance and pride that had defined his life seemed suddenly so small. In that moment, he understood something that had eluded him for years. True greatness isn't about winning or losing. It's about recognizing the potential in others, even when it's hidden beneath the surface. And for the first time in a long while, he felt humbled. As the young girl walked out of the grand ballroom, the whispers around her grew louder. She could hear bits and pieces of the conversation, but she didn't stop to listen. She had already proved herself in a way no one had ever expected, and now it was time to return to her simple life. The Grandmaster's words still echoed in her mind. "You're a genius." But to her, they didn't mean much. She wasn't seeking recognition or validation. She wasn't even trying to prove anyone wrong. She had simply played the game because it was what she loved to do. For her, chess wasn't a path to fame or glory. It was a way to escape the world around her, a world that saw her as nothing more than the maid's daughter. The world outside the ballroom, the one she lived in every day, was far from glamorous. Her home was small and modest, a tiny apartment tucked away in the back of the mansion where she worked. It was a far cry from the sparkling ballroom or the high society that surrounded the Grandmaster. Yet, there was a quiet dignity in the life she led, a life filled with love, sacrifice, and the occasional moments of peace she found in her chessboard. But that night, as she walked back to the servants' quarters, something was different. She felt a shift in the air. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She could feel it in the way the staff looked at her now, as if they were seeing her for the first time. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone else, someone who had proven that she belonged, not in their world of luxury, but in a world where brilliance was recognized, no matter where it came from. When she returned to the servants' quarters, her mother was waiting for her. The older woman smiled at her, though her face was tired, etched with the lines of years spent in hard work. "How did it go, sweetheart?" she asked softly. The girl smiled back, but there was something in her eyes, a glimmer of something more. "It went well," she said simply. Her mother's eyes searched her face, trying to read the depth of the experience her daughter had just gone through. She had known that her daughter was special in ways others couldn't see, but tonight, it seemed the world was starting to catch up. "You're not just any maid's daughter," her mother said quietly, her voice full of pride. "You're someone remarkable." The girl nodded, but she didn't feel the need to say anything more. She didn't need the approval of others. She had already proven her worth to herself. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the simple comforts of home, she felt something she hadn't felt before, a sense of belonging, not just in the world she lived in, but in the world of those who had once dismissed her. As the days went by, the story of the maid's daughter who defeated the Grandmaster spread, not just through the mansion, but through the city. People began to whisper about her genius, about how she had outsmarted one of the greatest minds in the world. The Grandmaster, too, had started to speak of her, telling anyone who would listen about the young girl who had humbled him. He had never forgotten her, nor would he ever. She had changed him in ways he didn't quite understand. In the end, it wasn't just about the game of chess or the Grandmaster's defeat. It was about breaking free from the chains of expectation and proving that brilliance could come from the most unexpected places. The maid's daughter had done that. And now, she was more than just a servant. She was a symbol of something greater, a reminder that talent and potential aren't limited by status or background. As days passed, the story of the maid's daughter spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the mansion and beyond. The whispers that once held mockery now carried admiration, as more and more people realized the depth of her brilliance. The Grandmaster's defeat was no longer just a rare moment. It was a turning point. It was the moment that shattered the illusion that wealth and status could define worth. The young girl, who had once been invisible in the eyes of the privileged, was now a symbol of unexpected talent, of rising above the limitations that society had imposed upon her. But despite the attention, she remained the same. She continued her work in the mansion with quiet dignity, unbothered by the newfound recognition. Her mother, however, saw the change in her daughter. She could tell that something had shifted in the girl's heart, something deeper than the surface-level praise she was receiving. One evening, as they sat together in their small apartment, her mother asked, "Do you feel different now, sweetheart?" The girl looked up from her chessboard, her face serene. "No, not really. The world has just started seeing what I've always known about myself. But I don't need anyone else to believe in me. I already believe in myself." Her words were simple but profound. She didn't need the approval of others to validate her talent. She knew who she was and what she was capable of. That, to her, was enough. The Grandmaster, though still in awe of her skills, had begun to take steps to make amends. He had written a letter to her, a public acknowledgement of her genius and a humble admission of his own mistake. "I misjudged you," he had written. "I assumed that a child from such humble beginnings could not possess the mind of a master. But you proved me wrong, and for that, I will forever respect you." The girl received the letter with the same calm demeanor she had shown throughout the ordeal. She didn't seek his approval, nor did she feel the need for his validation. But there was a small sense of satisfaction in knowing that her talent had been recognized, not just by the people around her, but by the very man who had once mocked her. As the months passed, the story of the maid's daughter continued to inspire others. It spread to the media, and soon, she was invited to speak at events, to share her story with a wider audience. But she remained humble, never losing sight of the values that had shaped her: hard work, resilience, and the belief that talent can come from anywhere, regardless of background or circumstance. One day, while sitting in a park, watching the children play chess in the sun, she was approached by a young girl, no older than 8, who looked at her with wide eyes. "Are you the girl who beat the Grandmaster?" the girl asked shyly. The maid's daughter smiled and nodded. "I guess I am." The girl's face lit up, and she asked, "Will you teach me how to play?" The girl, who had once been dismissed as nothing more than a maid's daughter, was now the teacher, passing on her knowledge to the next generation. And in that moment, she realized that true greatness wasn't just about winning a game or proving a point. It was about lifting others up, sharing knowledge, and inspiring others to reach for their own potential. She had broken through the barriers of expectation and judgment, and now she was helping others do the same. As the months went by, the young girl's reputation continued to grow, but she remained grounded, focused on what mattered most to her. Her daily routine of cleaning the mansion and spending quiet evenings playing chess had not changed. Despite the accolades, the media attention, and the invitations to speak at prestigious events, she never let the fame get to her head. She didn't crave recognition. What mattered to her was the simple joy she found in the game, the ability to think, to strategize, and to escape into the world of chess where no one judged her for her background. Yet, the world around her was changing. Her mother, who had always been proud of her daughter, now looked at her with a mixture of pride and concern. "You've become someone important, sweetheart," her mother said one evening as they sat at their small kitchen table. "But don't forget who you are. You're not better than anyone else just because of what you've done. Stay humble, stay kind." The girl nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I know, Mom. I never wanted to be better than anyone. I just want to play." Her mother smiled, placing a hand on hers. "That's what I love about you. You never let anything change who you are." And she never did. The girl's success didn't lead her to seek a life of luxury or status. She didn't ask for money or fame. What she wanted was the ability to help others see that greatness could come from anywhere, that even the most unexpected people had the potential for brilliance. One day, a letter arrived for her, a letter from a local school offering her a scholarship to join their prestigious chess program. The school was known for its elite students, and the scholarship was a rare opportunity for anyone to earn. The girl was both surprised and humbled. She had never imagined that someone would offer her a chance to learn and grow in such an environment. Her mother, too, was surprised but proud. "You've earned this," her mother said, tears welling in her eyes. "You've worked so hard. This is your chance to show the world what you can really do." The girl thought about the offer for a moment, weighing her options. She had never been one to chase after opportunities, but this one felt different. It was not about fame or recognition. It was about learning more, honing her skills, and finding a place where she could truly belong. She accepted the scholarship, not because it would change her life, but because it was a step toward a future where she could continue to do what she loved. The journey was just beginning. As she entered the new world of the chess program, she realized that this was not about competing with others. It was about pushing herself to be the best version of herself, to unlock the potential she knew was there all along. She wasn't the same girl who had walked into that ballroom months ago. She was no longer the maid's daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with in her own right. She had proven that with hard work, determination, and a belief in her own abilities, anything was possible. And now, as she stepped into this new chapter of her life, she knew there was no limit to what she could achieve. As she stepped into the world of the chess program, the young girl realized that this was no longer the small, quiet world she had known. She was surrounded by the best, the brightest, and the most ambitious minds, all competing for a place at the top. It was a world full of challenges, but it was also a world that inspired her to push herself even further. Every day, she sat at a new chessboard, facing opponents who had been trained in ways she had never imagined. Some were prodigies, their skills honed since they were children. Others were older, with years of experience under their belts. But the girl wasn't intimidated. She had already proven to herself that no matter the odds, she could rise to the challenge. Her first few weeks in the program were tough. The competition was fierce, and the level of play was unlike anything she had experienced before. But she didn't back down. She studied tirelessly, spending hours in the library, going over past games, analyzing her moves, and learning from her mistakes. Her coaches were impressed by her determination and her ability to pick up on new strategies quickly. They saw something in her that they hadn't seen in many of the other students, a quiet fire, a deep passion for the game that went beyond winning. She wasn't just playing to beat her opponents. She was playing to understand the game in its deepest form, to truly master it. As the weeks turned into months, the young girl's confidence grew. She started winning more matches, not just against other students, but against seasoned players who had more experience than she did. Her reputation as a rising star in the program began to spread, and soon, she was invited to participate in high-level tournaments. The pressure mounted, but she was ready. Her first major tournament was a turning point. It was a huge event, filled with the best players in the country, and the stakes were higher than anything she had faced before. The girl sat at the chessboard, feeling the weight of the moment, but she didn't let it overwhelm her. She focused on the game, on the pieces, on the strategy. She remembered her mother's words, "Stay humble, stay kind." She had always carried those words with her, and they had helped her stay grounded in even the most intense moments. When the tournament ended, she had emerged victorious, defeating some of the most renowned players in the country. It was a moment of triumph, but she didn't let it define her. She knew that this was just one step on her journey, one challenge overcome, but there were many more ahead. The victory didn't make her feel invincible. Instead, it made her realize that her journey was far from over. She was just getting started. The young girl had proven that she was more than just the maid's daughter. She had proven that talent doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from hard work, dedication, and a belief in oneself. She had shown the world that greatness could come from anywhere, and she was just beginning to make her mark. As she looked ahead to the future, she knew there would be more challenges, more victories, and more opportunities to grow. But above all, she knew that she had already accomplished something far more important than any title or trophy. She had found her place in the world, and it was one she had earned through sheer will and determination. As the months passed, the young girl's fame continued to spread far beyond the walls of the chess academy. Her victory at the tournament had catapulted her into the spotlight, but she remained focused on what had always mattered most to her, the game. She had won respect, but what she truly sought was mastery, not validation. The attention she received only fueled her determination to continue pushing herself beyond her limits. Yet, despite her growing success, the young girl never let the accolades change her. She stayed humble, always remembering her roots. The life she had lived before chess had brought her into the light. The mansion, the chessboard, the Grandmaster, none of it had ever been her goal. The only thing that had ever mattered was the game itself. One evening, as she sat in a quiet park, the girl reflected on how far she had come. She had been the maid's daughter, dismissed by so many, ignored by those who didn't think she had any value beyond her work. But now, her name was known in the chess world, her skill acknowledged by those who once looked down on her. She had shattered the expectations that had been placed on her, and in doing so, she had not just proven herself to the world, but had changed how she saw herself. Her mother, who had always supported her, now watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and quiet astonishment. "You've come so far," her mother said one night, as they sat together in their modest home. "I'm so proud of you. You've shown the world what you're capable of." The girl smiled softly, but there was no trace of arrogance in her expression. "I didn't do it for them," she said quietly. "I did it for me, for the person I knew I could be." The girl's journey had never been about proving others wrong. It had always been about proving to herself that she had the strength, the determination, and the skill to overcome the limitations that others had placed on her. And now, as she looked back on her journey, she realized that her success wasn't just about chess. It was about how she had refused to let anyone define her, how she had carved out a path for herself when no one else thought it was possible. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent gesture of love and support. "You've always had it in you," she said softly. "I knew you were special." The young girl nodded, her eyes focused on the distant horizon. "I just had to believe it," she whispered. Her story, once one of struggle and quiet determination, had become a beacon of hope for others. It wasn't just about breaking barriers in chess. It was about breaking barriers in life, about showing others that no matter where you come from or what people expect of you, you have the power to define your own destiny. The young girl had done just that. She had proven to the world that talent wasn't limited to the wealthy or the privileged, that greatness could come from the most unexpected places. And as she looked ahead to the future, she knew that her journey had only just begun. There were still challenges to face, still games to win, and still lessons to learn. But now, with every step she took, she did so with the knowledge that she was no longer defined by her past or the expectations of others. She was defined by her own strength, her own brilliance, and her unshakable belief in herself. Years went by, and the young girl's life took on new dimensions. She had come to be known not only for her chess victories, but for the way she had shattered expectations. She had done the impossible. She had risen above her background, above the assumptions people had about her, and had proven to herself and to the world that no one's potential is determined by their circumstances. The media continued to cover her journey, but she had never been one to seek the spotlight. Instead, she focused on her passion for chess, always looking for ways to grow, to push her limits, to find new ways to challenge herself. Her victories were celebrated, but she never became complacent. Her heart was still set on the game, on improving, and on discovering new depths to the art of chess. One day, after winning yet another major tournament, she received a letter that would change her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. It was an invitation to join an international team of chess grandmasters for an exclusive event, the World Chess Championship. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, one that very few players, regardless of their background, ever received. Her heart raced as she read the letter. This was the chance she had been working for, the moment that could take her career to new heights. But it was also a daunting prospect. She had faced challenges before, but this was the ultimate test. The pressure was unlike anything she had experienced. She knew that the competition would be fierce, that the best minds in the world would be waiting for her. But she wasn't afraid. This was her chance to prove once again that she belonged in the world of champions. Her mother, always by her side, supported her decision without hesitation. "You've earned this," her mother said, with a smile full of pride. "Whatever happens, you've already proven that you're capable of great things." The young girl nodded, feeling the weight of her mother's words. It was true. She had already proven that she was more than the sum of her past, that her worth wasn't defined by where she came from, but by who she had become. The day of the championship arrived, and she found herself standing in front of the world's most brilliant minds, ready to compete. The stage was set, the crowd was buzzing, and the pressure was palpable. But as she sat down at the chessboard, all the noise faded away. She focused entirely on the game, just as she had done so many times before. She wasn't concerned with the audience, with the expectations placed on her, or with the weight of history. She was there to play, and play she did. The match was intense, each move calculated with precision and skill. The grandmasters across from her were formidable opponents, but she held her ground, her mind sharp, her strategy flawless. When the final piece was placed and the game ended, she had done it again. She had won. The room fell silent as the realization spread. The young girl, once the maid's daughter, now stood at the top of the chess world. She had done more than just win a game. She had proven that there were no limits to what she could achieve. As she stood there, with the championship title in her hands, she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. This victory wasn't just about the tournament or the accolades. It was about the journey, the challenges, the growth, and the unwavering belief in herself that had carried her all this way. In that moment, she realized that her story wasn't just her own. It was a story for everyone who had ever been told they weren't enough, for everyone who had ever been underestimated. It was a reminder that greatness could come from anywhere, and that with enough determination, anyone could break free from the chains of expectation and create their own path. As she looked out over the audience, she knew that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The world had finally seen her for who she was, a true champion. And in that moment, she felt more powerful than ever, ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring. In this compelling millionaire story, A young girl rises from humble beginnings to prove her brilliance in the world of chess. Starting as the maid's daughter, she faces mockery and low expectations, but her talent for chess soon shatters these assumptions. As she takes on some of the greatest minds in the game, her journey becomes a testament to resilience and the power of self-belief. Through hard work, dedication, and overcoming adversity, she rises to become a champion, showing the world that talent can come from the most unlikely places. This millionaire story explores how a young girl, once dismissed by society, proves that with enough determination, anything is possible. From the ballroom, where a grandmaster was defeated, to the international championship stage, she shows that greatness is not defined by background or wealth. The true message of this millionaire story is about breaking barriers, believing in oneself, and defying the odds. Her journey not only inspires those around her, but serves as a reminder that brilliance is not limited to a select few. As her story continues to inspire others, it proves that even the most unlikely people can achieve extraordinary things. Discover how this millionaire story transforms the way we view success and potential, and learn that every setback is just a setup for something greater. This is not just another millionaire story, but a journey of self-discovery, hard work, and ultimate triumph.